Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, it's me Gamerturk, and we got a massive rumor coming regarding Sword Art Online progressive anime adaptation. Again, I want to make it very clear, this is a rumor. Let's get you quickly up to speed first. The rumor itself is that Sword Art Online progressive anime adaptation may be a movie-based adaptation series rather than a weekly TV anime series. Where the rumor comes from is the Aniplex Japan website, where one of the banner thumbnails is for SAO Progressive, but unlike the usual logo, it has 3 kanji added on top of it that people are assuming is spelling Gokijoban, which means movie version. However, the resolution is so small that it cannot be realistically read. Let's start with implications. First off, this may simply be a mistake on Aniplex's side. You should not be surprised if they used the logo for ordinal scale as the basis and accidentally left the movie mention up there or something. Secondly, and the most obvious possibility, is that Progressive will indeed be adapted as a series of movies, similar to Heaven's Feel movies for Fate Stay Night, for example. I will talk about why that may be a great thing, unlike what many people caught in the rage wave on Twitter. But before that, the third option, it may simply be that they are planning a theatrical premiere event for the first episode or two, similar to what they did with Alicization's Human Realm and War of Underworld sub-arcs with their respective beginnings. So that is the rumor, that is the source, that is what it may mean. Let's talk about why it would be great if it actually does end up being a series of movies, and why Twitter is a terrible place to be where people just want to jump on a hate bandwagon and yell about. First off, and most importantly, let's set some standards. A movie is typically 2 hours, so 120 minutes. That coincides with 6 episodes of a weekly anime series. Considering SAO anime traditionally adapts a single volume in 6 episodes, that coincides with a single movie being a single volume. The only exception to this adaptation pacing was Alicization's first half, the Human Realm arc, where they adapted 1 volume in 4 episodes, which led to a lot of cuts. So, traditionally speaking, a single volume being 6 episodes, as it usually is, if not worse, or the same content being a movie, makes no difference on a surface level in regards to being a good adaptation. It is the exact same time. Progressive Volume 1 is a double-sized volume, but you gotta remember, based on that logic, every argument you make towards a movie adaptation due to its length compared to the size of the light novel is exactly the same in a weekly anime format, as episode counts are equally limited over there. Let's stay on the logic of 1 volume is a movie or 6 episodes equation for the sake of simplicity. If that 1 volume is adapted in a movie, that means a continuous 120 minutes, which provides the production/scripting an immense amount of flexibility within those 120 minutes. They can wiggle around in that 120 minutes however they want with the content they have. Compared to an episodic structure of an anime series on TV, that 1 volume has to be actively split into 6 20-minute blocks, each with a strict beginning and ending. And this was the cause of a lot of issues in Alicization anime. One of the biggest examples was Shinon's arrival in War of Underworld episode 12. That episode was an absolute clusterfuck, solely because those 20 minutes had to cover everything up until the arrival of Shinon respectively. The wiggle room was limited to that 20-minute block alone, leaving no flexibility to adjust pacing accordingly, and thus everything in that episode got butchered to no end. Of course, one can argue that a weekly anime can preemptively solve these issues before production. However, that does not change the fact that a weekly anime has to actively juggle 20-minute blocks for a proper beginning and ending point. You cannot randomly end an episode wherever you want. You got even smaller scene blocks, so to say, to work with, and you can't just freely stop in between them. In a movie, you don't have that. You have free-flowing 120 minutes to design and structure the narrative around however you want. The only restriction you have to follow is that you begin once and end once with the beginning of the volume/story and the ending of it. Thus, a movie is objectively better than a weekly anime under the assumption that an equal amount of time is allocated to both. Secondly, the actual production pipeline itself. We all watched Alicization anime, we all watched the episode 4 Ugachi vs Kirito Fight in Awe, and then followed the next 20 episodes as the main action animator of A1 decided to leave production to animate a McDonald's ad, and his substitute was nowhere to be seen either until War of Underworld arrived. The animation quality dwindled each passing week as the staff had to rush the content to meet the weekly deadline and start working on the next to meet the next weekly deadline, and so on. Whereas on a movie, you don't have individual release deadlines. The entire movie production has a single release deadline to meet, well, 2 if you factor in the Blu-ray release with some animation fixes here and there. Thus, the movie has a much more flexible production in comparison, leading to mostly better quality. There is no, okay, just completely half-ass this episode so you can quickly work on the next episode 2 days longer. Of course, there are internal deadlines for specific scenes, as projects always have, but again, they are much more flexible as the deadline is a year away, not a single week away. So something like Kanno leaving to animate a McDonald's ad does not mean the project will be dead for the next couple of episodes. It just means he can take over his scenes again once he's done with that project, because by jumping out, he did not already miss a dozen episodes. The movie release still has plenty of time left. The production of a movie is much more flexible compared to a weekly anime. I mean, for those with project management background, this is obviously very obvious, but I guess a simple way to put it is having a single deadline for a single project is easier than having 24 consecutive deadlines for 24 consecutive projects that all depend on each other. Both of these are major factors for you to have a better quality experience in a movie, rather than always having to complain how much was cut or butchered and the like. We all know, we all hate that, we all watched Alicization anime and covered it here on the channel. But let's not act like there are no downsides to the movies. First off, yes, you gotta wait longer. Movie production naturally takes longer rather than watching an episode every other week. But hey, I'd rather wait for a proper product rather than watch the animation melt away like a cheese every following week, because the animators can't keep up with that pace. Secondly, which I totally sympathize with you on that front, anime movies are not very accessible under certain circumstances. Even ignoring the elephant in the room, that is COVID-19, some licensors around the world are just absolutely the worst. To be honest, in the German-speaking area, both Wakanim and Peppermint Anime are doing an absolutely amazing job that I rarely feel an issue on this front personally. During Ordinal Scale theatrical release, we even had screenings here in my small town of Innsbruck. I still needed to go to Vienna for an English sub screening, but then again, I am in a German-speaking country and asking for English subs, I was part of a niche, yet I still had the option. Everywhere else, there are plenty of German sub screenings all around the country, all around Germany, all around Switzerland. Meanwhile, there's a stark contrast in some other countries. Some countries only had limited screenings in limited locations, not matching the demand properly. Heck, some countries still don't have reliable sources of watching Ordinal Scale because their anime streaming platforms are utter shit with their robust exclusivity and content policies showing the bad sides of extreme capitalism or sheer incompetence in some cases. If you are in one of those regions, you really gotta speak up towards your licensors, show them that there is a demand for the product, complain about their lacking library, etc. Let them know their handling of the situation is not acceptable, so one day things can get better for you as well. But if I'm being honest, that is pretty much the only scenario that I can understand someone advocating for a weekly anime production rather than a yearly or even bi-yearly movie releases. In my opinion, living where I am living right now, a movie is objectively an improvement over a weekly anime production, under the assumption of ceteris paribus, the remaining variables remain the same, things like allocated time, the staff, and all that jazz. But that covers everything from that little rumor wave. Again, we'll surely hear more on November 8th during the special event featuring a lot of SAO voice actors at Sword Art Online After War panel, and I'll be sure to let you know as soon as we got confirmed news from there. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon for more in-depth Sword Art Online coverage and news. Become a channel member to get access to a special badge and exclusive emotes to use. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook for faster news access, 50k special merch available on my Teespring page, and a huge thanks to all my patrons and channel members as usual. Until next time, stay cool.